I want to thank you for joining me today. And before we get started, as always, all messages that are released on this channel are my truth. And that is exactly what it is and what it always will be. And that is my truth. Now, my truth consists of a bunch of experiences that I gained clarity from, which ultimately took me back to the real me, which is truth. Now, when I try to convince you that my truth is the gospel, however, my truth is the gospel for me. That does not make it the gospel for you, nor will I ever try to make it the gospel for you. By me being on this platform, I am simply placing breadcrumbs on a path that I've already walked. Now, you find yourself on a similar path and you resonate with said breadcrumbs and you say, you know what, I like that. I want to follow that. And that's cool. If not, that is cool as well. My purpose is to assist those who are ready to get out of their own way. So let's get right into it. I just wanted to hop on real quick and give a little tip that I know for sure will help a lot of people. And it's basically touching on something that I've talked about briefly in another message, and that is being childlike. Because it's definitely a necessity while you're on this spiritual journey. And so let's get into it. So childlike is far from being childish or immature. So childlike is being humble. Children are more trusting than adults. Children for sure have a more pure heart. The world hasn't affected them yet. So children are more often, they'll chat with strangers and they're a lot more friendly. You have your curiosity is at its peak. Children are just, and they're typically dependent on their parents. So when you're adopting this childlike nature, you want to switch that up. So you're not going to be dependent on your parents. You're just going to be dependent on one parent, and that is the father. So when you're an adult in this childlike nature, that's the only person you're dependent on is the father, right? Matthew 18:3-4. After being asked, who is the greatest in heaven? Unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom. I've always been a happy person. I've always pretty much kept my childlike nature, which is loving, fun, trusting, and free. Now, I will say that my inner child never left. It just was chilling. So basically, when I got into the mind and being more strategic and trying to survive, because I couldn't be free and live as a child in the environment I was in. It was not safe. So I had to become more strategic and look out for my safety. And that's pretty much when I separated from my inner child, right? Which was pretty much the objective. And I remember, my curiosity was extremely high as a kid. I was always wondering why and how something works. Those are my why and how. And I always wondered, how does it work? How does that work? How does that do this? How does it do that? Like, my curiosity was off the chain, right? So I would always ask questions. I was getting in trouble because I had asked too many questions. Then I would go to school, same exact thing. I was always wondering why, how, this, that, and the other. So teacher say something, I'd ask questions. Then I get in trouble because I'm being disruptive. How am I being disruptive when all I'm doing is asking questions of something that I want to know? So then I get sent home with a note, and I'd be like, I was just asking. It didn't matter. Whatever they said is what it was. And I get a spanking. So after getting multiple spankings for asking questions in school, which is where you're supposed to ask questions and learn and be curious, right? No, that's not where, because they wanted you to be a listener, a worker. And they're trying to rub that curiosity out of you, which is exactly what they did. Because I got tired of getting in trouble just by asking questions, right? And the same thing was, it was the same case at home. I couldn't ask too many questions because I get in trouble. So, which ended up leading to me experimenting a lot of stuff on my own, because if I asked, I get in trouble. So I'm like, well, let me just see. And sometimes it didn't work out to my advantage, but I scratched that itch that I had. So looking back, I can now see why I was treated the way I was growing up. When you're in that energy and you're closer to God, and when you're close to God and you will be glowing and you have favor over your life, this isn't just given to you, it's earned. It's what's in your heart. That is what matters. We're not here to be made to be living such a strict and rigid life. You are enjoying life more when you're childlike and you're curious and you're just roaming through life free. It's letting go and essentially returning to simplicity. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "In the true man, there is a child hidden. It wants to play. Let your inner child out and let him roam the world freely." And like I said, I never separated from my inner child. It just was not at the forefront. So I had to let it feel safe enough to come to the forefront, because before, for a very long time, it wasn't safe. The first 18 years of my life, I lived in a very strict household and I had to do what I had to do to survive. And from that point, I went to the military. And obviously, I was there for 20 years. And you definitely don't have curiosity in the military. Once again, it's the same exact thing. They want you to be a soldier. They want you to listen, follow directions, not be a free thinker. So all of that free thinking and curiosity was in the background. And I remember, like, once I retired, and that's pretty much, I can say, is what saved me, is being reconnected with my inner child. And what was it? It was during the rough period when it finally came back. So around close to the 2-year mark, maybe around that time frame-ish of being retired is when it popped out. My inner child popped back out, and I knew my inner child had popped back out because the curiosity came back. And it was funny because it was like kind of like my favorite movie in the world, A Christmas Story. And if you remember The Christmas Story, the bully in that movie, Scott Farkus, right? When when he was trying to describe, he's like, Scott Farkus. And then he like popped his head like around the corner. He was like, "Hello, boys." Basically, like the look on his face when he popped out. That's how it felt like when my when my inner child reconnected with me. It's like it popped out, and then soon as it popped out, it was like it was like a rush of curiosity came over me, and I was curious about this and that and this and this, and I was like, where the heck did this come? And I wasn't curious like this in forever, a very long time. And then shortly after that, I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a grown ass man. Ain't nobody can tell me what I can do, what not to do, what I can experiment, So I realized, I'm like, man, let me go ahead and dive into this curiosity. And that's when I started going down rabbit holes and getting really deep on my journey, because of that curiosity came back. That childlike nature came back. Whereas before, I was taking life a lot more serious. I was rigid. It was a totally different experience before reconnecting with my inner child. Carl Jung once said, "Every child is born whole. The work of life is to return that wholeness consciously, basically returning to who you were before you were programmed by life, family, friends, religion, work, whatever. It's all these different things programmed you. And you're trying to go back to that nature, go back to who you were prior to being given a name, given to what your school said, what religion says, what your parents says. These are all programs. Has nothing to do with your true inner nature. Those things were programmed you. They programmed you for their benefit, not your benefit. When you're childlike, Like I said, you're going to be more trusting. Your presence is different. You're more open. You have a sense of bewilderment. Your authenticity is high. This is the key part right here. You're more authentic as a child. A child says what's on their mind. A child says what they feel. A child is authentic in who they are. Childish, you're more reactive. You're trying to control things. You have pride. You have fear. You're more connected into chaos. Think about it. You remember little childish, little badass kids running around? That's childish. And you can still see that in adults who are childish. They never reconnect. They disconnected with their inner child when they were young. So when something happens in their reality, they don't know how to react emotionally. So that's why they are reactive. That's why they try to control things. You know, these are all the different things of being childish. Luke 18:16 through 17. Whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a little child shall not enter into it. We've already said that God, the kingdom of God is within you, in your heart to be specific. All right. So 1 John 4:8. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. So God is love. And if you're not loving and have the capacity to receive love, you can't receive God. It's really just that simple. If you've had your heart broken and now you're not trusting. So now you're trying to control this, right? This is, like I said, this is leading into being childish. Childlike is being trusting, open, bewildered by God, truly authentic. And now I fell into this trap as well. So getting my heart broken, and you know what? I'm going to quote unquote protect myself, right? So I'm not going to let this person in. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Blah, blah, blah. You're putting all these walls up and you're blocking love. That's what you're blocking. And if God is love, you're blocking God out of your heart. You cannot serve two masters. Either something is or it isn't. You're going to either take that risk or you are not. And if you don't take the risk, that's okay. But you will have to live by that. Everything we do here is by choice. So it's always going to be a risk. Yes, love is risky. So that's why it's important for you to get to know the individual thoroughly before connecting, like on a spiritual basis. And I know I was guilty of this my entire life because I didn't know how to love. I didn't know what love was. I didn't have an example of that growing up. So I had to learn all of this stuff very, very late in life. But as they say, better late than never. So basically, if what I'm describing, if this isn't you, then you should not expect to be God. Going to church and all that, that doesn't get you into the kingdom. Look at the words, enter it, aka your heart, aka God. Being childlike, you're able to receive truth. And that is what it's about, receiving truth, because God is the truth. How are you trying to receive God, but you don't want to receive truth? If your cup is full, how can I pour anything else in it? So you got up all these walls, these barriers, nothing can come to you. Psalms 131:2. I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child with his mother. Being like a child, you have more faith, and it makes it more easier to surrender and give up control. This is all it's about, is you giving up control. Notice how I said you, because that's what you've created, a you. When in reality, there is no you. There is only one source. Trying to get back to itself through multiple forms. but it's only one source. Because you created a you thinking you're separate from that source, you have to find that out. And the easiest way to get back to that source is becoming your childlike nature. And I brought this up in other messages, but it keeps ringing true. Go back and look at Robin Williams in Hook. He could not turn into Peter Pan until he tapped into his inner child. Go back and watch that scene when they're all at the little dinner table and they're trying to get him to turn back into Peter Pan. Remember, they was all sitting there with imaginary food. None of that stuff happened until he tapped back into his inner child. Then the creativity, the bewilderment, all these different things that I've been talking about. Go back and watch that scene. You'll see everything that I'm saying. That's when all of that stuff came back. He started to smile. He was happier. He was more free because he was in a childlike state. You're more free. You're more close to that of what you truly are when you're in that energy. So once again, become childlike, not childish. And I'm gonna leave it there. And as always, if you get anything out of this message, as usual, like, subscribe, and I will definitely check you in the next one.